Session 6. High-level panel discussion on connectivity. Moderator, David Lee, CEO, European Business Association. Speakers, Maya Tskitishvili, Vice Prime Minister, Minister of Regional Development and Infrastructure of Georgia. Vasil Hudak, Vice President, EIB. Yuri Lavrinyuk, Deputy Minister of Infrastructure of Ukraine. Daniela Morari, Secretary of State, Ministry of Foreign Affairs and European Integration of the Republic of Moldova.
I do apologize for the delay, but one of the speakers is caught up in the bad Batumi rain, and in his place will be the ambassador of Ukraine to Georgia. Thank you, sir, for filling in. Let's go. So we'll close the doors and get started. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you for coming to Georgia. It's always an honor to host an event like this here in the beautiful coastal city of Batumi. The subject for today is connectivity. That is road, rail, air. But of course, it's the 21st century, and it's also about energy. And most importantly, in some ways, it's about telecommunications connectivity as well. Before I let the panel introduce themselves, I will introduce myself. And if I can, I'm going to have a very quick poll. How many people here in this room would classify themselves that their primary occupation is as a business person? Who would say that my primary occupation is I'm a businessman or a businesswoman? Okay, so there's 3 people in the room and myself. Well, that means I may have a hostile audience because I'm a businessman. And I have the honor of addressing this important audience because in 2004, in February, just after the Rose Revolution, I was asked to come from Moscow to Georgia and take over as CEO Magticom. Magticom is a mobile phone company, so that's my interest in communications. At the time, Magticom had 300,000 subscribers in a country of 4.5 million. The fixed line network didn't work, and the only way you could get the internet practically was to come to a hotel in the middle of Tbilisi. Today, Magticom alone has over 2 million subscribers. Everyone in the country has access to 4G internet. The mobile telephone network is ubiquitous. Every home in the country can now get from Magticom satellite TV. And we have an extensive fiber optic network across the country. I'm not plugging because I no longer work for that company. I retired a few years ago, and I'm now representing the European Business Association. Now, connectivity is also about roads, so while my panel settle into their seats a little bit, I'll tell you about connectivity in a practical sense as a businessman. When I first came here in 2004, and I came to Batumi, you needed a 4x4 car if it was raining badly. It took about 12 hours. It now takes 5. The train took about 8 hours. It now takes 5, and it's a 2-seater Swiss train. If you haven't tried the train to Tbilisi, please do so. If you have a few more days, go and see Tbilisi as well. It's wonderful. Now, that kind of physical improvement in infrastructure is important for business. Why? I'll give you another little story. I have a farm, 200-hectare farm by Kutaisi Airport. When I built that farm nearly 15 years ago now, Kutaisi Airport didn't work. It was there, obviously, a big airport, but no planes flew in and out of it. Last month, one airline there, Wizz Air, just one airline, announced its 2 millionth customer, and it's only been running for three or 4 years. And it has over 20 direct routes to European capitals from Kutaisi. So that's a new airport servicing people. Now, why is that important? Because I remember being on my farm, and we were growing corn. There was no distribution system for agriculture at that time. It could only be sold in Georgia. So we were doing corn. And one of our problems was the soil it's a bit acid. It's a 5 pH. Now, we were selling what we could sell in Georgia. And one day, and this is a true story, I'm in the middle of a field and we've just planted corn. And I see a yellow disc on a wooden pole. And I say to the farm guy, the farm manager, what's the yellow disc for? And he said, I think they're going to build a road. And I said, oh no, that's going to really be disruptive for the farm. And he said, a sort of 50-year-old Georgian guy said to me, no, David, I think that might be quite a good idea. And of course, they built the E60. They built the Silk Road, basically, through the south fields of my farm. And what we now are doing in that area is not making corn, we're making blueberries. And the blueberries are going to fly out of Kutaisi Airport when the terminal is built, and they're going to go from Kutaisi, and they're going to fly into Europe, and they're going to fly into Dubai. So what we're talking about today is not just about a project of further integration into the EU, it's about helping business. Because if one thing I've learned over the last 15 years in Georgia, it's this. You can build a democracy because we have the strongest democracy in the Eastern Partnership. You can give people free speech. But ultimately, what the man on the street, the man and the woman on the farm want is they want to improve their way of life. They want a job, and they want to increase the economic prospects that their family face. So a lot of what we're talking about with connectivity is connectivity to improve business as well as to improve the connectivity into the European Union. So I'll try to provide that flavor while my other guests will talk more perhaps about the infrastructure itself and the political implications of that. I'm going to ask each person to give a few minutes now talking about themselves. And I'll first of all introduce the Vice Prime Minister of Georgia, Maya, and also she's in charge of infrastructure. So Maya, as I sit down, maybe you could just say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning to everyone, and once again, welcome to our country. And thank you, David, for bringing this very interesting and very important insight, because when we're talking about connectivity, it's usually about roads, rails, digital connectivity, pipelines, and physical infrastructure, which we can all see. But of course, when we are talking about connectivity, it's really connecting people and connecting businesses, connecting markets, and connecting countries which are located along or through the economic corridor. So that's why connectivity for Georgia, it's not just a matter of doing the roads and not just East-West Highway is now known to everyone in Georgia because we are investing really too much in building up, in scaling up this infrastructure to the international highway level. But of course, it's not the best way how you can, not just the best way how you can get from Tbilisi to Batumi, but it's the best way how you can get from Asia to Europe and from Europe to Asia. So that's why for us, our road infrastructure and what we are doing from the Ministry of Regional Development Infrastructure, which I am also leading, is building the new network of high international standards highway, which would provide easy and free access and better, much better connectivity as from the countries to Europe. And especially, it's, I would like to mention that Georgia, as you know, based on its strategic, very interesting and important location, have the potential of connecting the countries, and especially landlocked countries, which are located in Middle Asia and beyond. In that perspective, we from Georgia are investing about 3.4 billion in making this infrastructure, fitting the infrastructure. I'm really pleased to say that now this East-West Highway and all this is part of the extended TNT network. So European Union, based on the analysis that it was done, of course, we all see the location, strategic location of Georgia and potential that it gives Europe also to extend its markets and extend its economic corridors beyond the European Union through countries like Georgia. And now it's a part of the extended TNT network. Now all the airports that you mentioned and logistical centers, which we are also going to build along the roads and along the airports, are also part of the Trans-European investment plan. And this is actually the way how we are going to develop the infrastructure in order to promote the physical infrastructure and physical connectivity. After we'll complete the East-West Highway in 2022, you will be able to get from border from Azerbaijan and Armenia to border with Turkey in twice less time than it is now. So we will be decreasing time from 8-hour travel to 4-hour travel. And we will get to Batumi even further, even faster from Tbilisi. But it's again, so it's not the most important thing. The most important thing is that these physical roads are providing the new opportunities for the people who are living also along the roads, and we are looking for that roads as also part of our regional connectivity, inter-Georgia connectivity as well. And by constructing this type of physical infrastructure, we see that people who are living in the regions of Georgia can be also connected better to the Europe, not just to parts of the Georgia, but also connected to Europe through these ways. Another very important project that we are doing is also the modernizing our railway, because it's also part of the transportation bone back, which is also very important for transportation of goods and transportation of people. And of course, it's very important projects like energy connectivity, digital connectivity, pipelines, and this type of energy projects, which also provides opportunity of utilizing Georgian potential to linking the markets through Georgia. And when we are talking about the energy, for instance, very interesting projects that we are currently discussing with European Union, with international partners, is just providing the Black Sea connection over Black Sea of Georgia to Europe, to Romania, as a Bulgaria. Currently, the pre-feasibility study is going through, and this project is already being considered by Eastern Partnership as a potential project within the Eastern Partnership, and it will be, of course, additional opportunity where we could provide we can use our hydroenergical resources and deliver this hydroenergic power to the European markets as well, to diversify our network, and of course to help European Union also to diversify the sources of energy. In addition, of course, digital connectivity, as David also mentioned, is very important also, both for people-to-people connecting, for business connectivity, and we are also thinking about connecting through Black Sea, Georgia, through the digital cabling and digital connection, broadband connection to the Europe, which would be also additional opportunity for Georgia to host and to position itself as a regional hub for the data centers, digital regional hub for the digital businesses, and of course, promote additional business location and new investments in Georgia as well. Also, we are working for the connectivity through the Black Sea, and Black Sea was also an important topic of discussion yesterday as well when we were talking about Black Sea security, but we also should consider the Black Sea also as an opportunity for connecting our country to Europe as well, and the countries which are located around Black Sea. So the ferry traffic and ferry feeder traffic is also a very important opportunity where we can better utilize our connection, better connect to our European neighbors, and of course our ports networks. And as you might know, we are here currently in Georgia are working on constructing a new deep water port, developing also existing ports that we have here in Georgia in order to provide this uninterrupted, very reliable connection and connectivity through the whole physical infrastructure, through the railways, roads, and of course ports to the Europe. But what I would also bring here in the insight when we are talking about the infrastructure, the potential for the development, is that connectivity, it's not just a physical connectivity, but it's even more important, it's connectivity of the businesses, connectivity of the people. And today, many of you are connecting to each other in Georgia. And it happens, the same happens in the business as well. Many of the companies are utilizing the potential that the Georgia has and possibility and opportunity that Georgia is providing in its very wide network of the free trade relations, which we currently have both with Europe, with CIS countries, with Turkey, with China, with EFTA countries, working currently on the free trade agreement with India and starting talks with Israel as well. So these are the opportunities that this type of connectivity also provides to businessmen, to everyone who decides to do its business in Georgia, and to find the place where we can connect two big regions, Europe and Asia. We frequently say that Georgia connects East and West, and where East meets West. And in this particular case, we are providing all the opportunities. Should it be physical infrastructure, should it be very interesting and very free business regime, and of course this type of free trade regulations that help everyone who would like to connect to each other in Georgia utilize this potential.
Okay, we just pass the microphone over then, please, to the ambassador. I just make a couple of highlights about what we were just saying. And please, it's the second day, so if someone has a question, we don't have to be too formal. Just put your hand up, and if I see you, I'll refer to you. One of the things that the Vice Prime Minister just said, which is very important, is that one of the reasons I'm here is it's a very easy place to do business. We're currently rated the 6th easiest place in the world to start a business. And it's true. It is actually true. If you want to start a business in Georgia, come to the European Business Association and I'll have you up and running in 24 hours. I mean, I'll register you, you'll have an email, you'll have a tax account. The tax here is the 3rd lowest in the world for businesses. And this connectivity that we're talking about here is happening. So we are now developing, for example, a big startup scene in Tbilisi. If you have a business in Georgia, you have a free trade agreement not just with China, but with the EU. And as this is an EU conference, we shouldn't forget that that's a huge issue. It's very hard to send stuff into Europe if you don't have a DCFTA. We've got a DCFTA. 2016, I watched it being signed in Parliament, which is in Kutaisi. And what's incredible now is that we can make things on the farm, or we can build things. We have a member now in Kutaisi making solar panels. It's a German company. I mean, think about that. We have a German company in Kutaisi. For those of you who don't know where Kutaisi is, it's between Tbilisi and Georgia, okay? It's about 2 hours from here. And there's a big factory now making solar panels. German factory making solar panels, and they're going to be exported from Georgia to Europe. So as a place to do business now, there's really nowhere in the region that's better than Georgia. Not because of our population, we've only got 3.5 million people, but because we connect 500 million people in China, in Europe, with China. So everything the minister just said is absolutely true on a practical level. Okay, if I can now hand over, please. Oh, we actually have the guest. If I can actually now hand over then, please, to our guest from Ukraine. And if you would introduce yourself, sir, and then maybe a few words about infrastructure.
Доброго дня, колеги. Я, з вашого дозволу, буду на вашій вітчизняній мові, на українській. Я вибачаюсь за запізнення. Я з 7 ранку готую візит президента нашого до порту Одеса. І у нас завтра там великий захід в порту Одеса, тому ще раз приношу свої вибачення. Інвестиції в інфраструктуру України інвестиції в інфраструктуру України на 2019 рік сягнула цифри 4 мільярдів доларів. Проекти, які підготовлені Міністерством інфраструктури на 2020-2024 рік, сягає кейсу це більше 100 проєктів вартістю більше 5 мільярдів доларів. Я, з вашого дозволу, по галузям в двох словах пройдуся, щоб ви розуміли, наскільки ми масштабно підійшли до цього запитання. По-перше, ми говоримо про побудову ТНТ-маршрутів, які проходять через Україну. Ми говоримо про морські порти, ми говоримо про залізницю, ми говоримо про автомобільні дороги, ми говоримо про авіацію. На сьогоднішній день нами завершено роботу над техніко-економічним обґрунтуванням чотирьох морських портів. Перше – це два великі концесійних проекти порта Ольвія і порта Херсон, які вже в цьому місяці буквально будуть виставлені на відкритий прозорий тендер про концесійні інвестиції, і будь-який інвестор, який хоче вкласти кошти в Україну, може завтра прийняти участь в цьому конкурсі і взяти в концесію два невеликих, але ефективних порта України морських. Окремо ми з білоруськими колегами почали роботу над відновленням річкового шляху Е40. Ми говоримо про поєднання річкою між країнами Балтики і Чорним морем через річку Дніпро. Робота над проектом завершується, і ми вже найближчим часом можемо почати днопоглиблювальні роботи для того, щоб привести у відповідну глибину річки і відновити історичний такий річковий шлях Е40 для того, щоб країни Балтики і Балтійське море з'єднати з Чорним річковим шляхом. Тому ми тут відкриті для пропозицій, відкриті для інвестицій. Нові річкові термінали, які будуть будуватися в Україні, нові річкові термінали, які вже почали будівництво в Білорусі. І знову ж таки ми це робимо в рамках Східного партнерства. Залізнична інфраструктура. Ми в цьому році маємо надію, що буде прийнятий новий закон України про залізнодорожній транспорт, в якому буде поняття допуску приватного оператора. Тому ми відходимо від старих таких пострадянських розумінь, що лише там монополіст Укрзалізниця має працювати в себе там на залізниці. Наша українська залізниця має лише обслуговувати інфраструктуру залізничну і збільшувати напрямки. А будь-який приватний оператор, який буде допущений, може працювати безперешкодно на території України. Тому, знову ж таки, будь-яка інвестиція в цьому напрямку підтримується Україною. Автомобільні шляхи. В нас на сьогоднішній час розроблено два концесійних проекти автомобільних доріг. Це вже в нас врегульовано на законодавчому рівні. Це автомобільна дорога Київ-Одеса і Львів-Краківець на кордоні з Польщею. Тому два інвестиційних проекти готово. Будь-який інвестор може приймати участь вже завтра в тому, щоб інвестувати в українську дорогу. Авіаційний транспорт. Після того, як до нас в Україну зайшли такі дві авіакомпанії, як Ryanair і Wizz Air, ріст пасажиропотоку виріс на 72%. І на сьогоднішній час лише в аеропорту Бориспіль сягає 15 мільйонів пасажирів на рік. Ми розробили 2 концесійних проекти. Це будівництво нового карго-терміналу в державному аеропорту Бориспіль і паливозаправочного комплексу, і відкриті для спілкування з будь-яким інвестором. З вашого дозволу, коротко так, Україна відкрита для інвестицій. Україна – це приваблива країна для вкладення і ведення бізнесу. Запрошуємо всіх. Дякую.
I'm going to have to announce a conflict of interest. I think Georgia is the best place to invest. But I'm sure Ukraine is also a very good place as well, sir. If I could just pick up a few of the things you said, which I think creates a bit of a link here. You mentioned that you're developing the Dnieper River, yes, to get access to the Black Sea. This seems to be a theme that the business community is talking about quite a lot now. In my briefing pack from the EIB, there was a comment that if connectivity is important, it's very important what countries you're connected to. Georgia has a huge disadvantage in that our connection with Russia is not just a connection, they're actually occupying a third of the country. So we do have a connection there, but what we want is a better connection with Europe. And actually, the Black Sea is the edge of Europe. It's the edge of Europe. That's the border. It's not the Turkish border for us or the Russian border, Armenian, Azerbaijan. It's the Black Sea. And I think Georgia must be one of the few places in the world where the business people, the business community is competing to build not one deep water port, but to develop 2 deep water ports. So, I mean, we get this. The business community get the idea that we've got to develop the ports as well. I love the reference you made, sir, to Wizz Air, because Wizz Air are with us as well. And I just came from the Hilton, that's the member of the European Business Association, like this hotel, wonderful hotels. But there's a problem, and you may not be aware. Ukrainians really like to come to Georgia. I'm sure you're aware of that. And we love to have Ukrainian guests. But our hotel prices are good. Our country is magnificent. Our food is perfect. We give away wine. You know the story. But the price of an aircraft ticket from the Ukraine to Georgia is much, much higher than when I fly home to my family in England. I can get home to England for like about $30, $40 for a single flight on Wizz Air. And it's much, much more for your compatriots from Ukraine to come to Georgia. So perhaps the ministers would want to sit together afterwards and work out how you can convince your Wizz Air to fly more frequently from Kutaisi. Do you want to pick up on that? Would you like to answer that? Why don't we get cheaper flights between the Ukraine and Georgia? Ratoma Trenogoaxa Upro Dishevli Resi. Tbilisi dan і Kutaisi dan Українці. Why?
Я коротко відповім на ваше запитання. Я приведу приклад. До того часу, як ми привели в Україну Ryanair і Wizz Air, про що ми говорили, в Україні був лише один авіаційний перевізник, і якщо там порівняти, наприклад, ціна з Києва в Одесу, авіаційний переліт коштував 17 тисяч гривень. Це для порівняння, це десь більше, ніж $500. Це квиток дуже дорого. Після того, як ми з великим супротивом, багато хто не хотів і політичної волі не було, але ми це зробили. Ми завели в державу авіаційних перевізників, які змогли зробити конкурентність і змагальність на авіаційному ринку. На сьогоднішній день квиток, наприклад, там Київ-Лондон коштує €80. Я погоджуюсь, що Київ-Батумі, про що ви говорили, що рейс коштує дуже дорого. На сьогоднішній час виконують лише чартерні перевізники. На превеликий жаль компанії Ян-Ейр, яка сьогодні виконує рейси, SkyUp, не врегулювали питання по вирішенню слотів і частоти польотів на Батумі. Від цього залежить і вартість квитка. Але я можу вас єдине переконати, що в наступному році, 2020-му, згідно нашої державної програми, квиток Київ-Батумі, нові рейси Київ-Тбілісі, які будуть виконувати іноземні компанії, які зроблять конкуренцію на цьому ринку, зможуть дозволити ефективно, комфортно і дешево зробити авіасполучення між нашими державами. Дякую.
Okay, well, thanks for that. There's a European Business Association in Ukraine, and the European Business Association here. And if you will commit to connecting us together, we will talk to Wizz Air, which is Hungarian, through the Hungarian ambassador in Georgia and Ukraine, and we will try to set up a deal so that a deal can go from Ukraine to Georgia to Kutaisi as well. This is really important. One other thing I wanted to talk about before we hand over to the representative from Moldova, if you could pass the mic across, sir, yeah? There's a lot of talk again, some similarity here between the building of the roads. Ukraine is also building all these roads. And the last speaker today is from the European Investment Bank. And in the briefing notes kindly provided by the European Investment Bank, one of the things is about sustainability, it's about green energy. And one of the things that the business community want to pass back to the diplomats is this. You shouldn't use steel in the construction of bridges on roads. It's old-fashioned Soviet technology, and we're all doing it. And it's not necessary. There's a factory here called DBF, again German, Deutsche Basalt Fiber. They spin out fiber from melted basalt rocks. It's like carbon fiber, if you've heard of that. And they export that now from Georgia to Europe, to the UK and different places. And one of the things to think about in your construction works is that if you're going to build a road, don't just build a road because it's cheap. You know, build a road that's going to be cheap and efficient for a long time into the future. So don't just build a road and give it to the cheapest construction company you can find from China or Turkey. Maybe give it to a construction and design company from Europe that will use renewable, like basalt fiber, and it will also operate the road and maintain the road for a long period of time, because there's a lot of money now, billions of dollars, going into these roads. And a lot of the business community are telling me we're not necessarily building them with the best European standards. So when you are looking at giving people money to build, I mean, we want the money, please give us the money, you know, we'll build the roads. But please do look at who is designing these roads and what materials you're using and whether it's the most efficient method. Now, there's a European Business Association in Moldova, and my next speaker is from Moldova. And one of the things I've noticed when I go backwards and forwards between these countries is that actually there are some similarities. You know, it's not a very big country, it's a very beautiful country, and they face a lot of the same problems that we do, you know, with Russia and so forth. As far as investment climate is concerned, I think it's good that when you have a meeting like this, you do have all these business people, or four of us, and we are actually all competing for investment here, but it is friendly, it's friendly competition. And if you don't want to give money to Georgia or invest your money or aid into Georgia, please give it to the Ukraine or to Moldova. So please, the Moldovan speaker.
Good morning to everyone. First of all, I would like to appreciate for keeping the tradition to the Georgian government, to inviting us in a row, and also to dedicate this conference to 10 years anniversary of Eastern Partnership. As I usually say, maybe 10 years it's not a lot for history books, but for all of us working on this, and for policy, I think it's a lot. And I think we should dedicate this time a bit to reflect, to debate, and also to plan for the future. Connectivity is, without saying, a crucial to our strategic, to our development of our countries and to our economies. And it really helped to build this added value within the Eastern Partnership and to become at the core, to become the main priority. It took ground in these 10 years. And I think it's also helped all the other development that we had within the Eastern Partnership. I think I visited this conference, I think this is the 5th time, and usually I was a speaker to visa liberalization or Eastern Partnership or Association Agreement. I'm a speaker within the connectivity, which maybe it's not natural because I'm not coming from a ministry which is specialized, but it's also building naturally on what we're doing. The trade volumes are increasing, the number of people traveling to EU is increasing. 70% of our trade goes to EU. We have 2 million of Moldovans doing 6 million of border crossings in these last 5 years of visa-free. And I think these numbers are talking by themselves of the natural need of connectivity into it. If to really jump directly to the subject of today's panel, I will start with aviation. And last year, it was the first year when EU was the first EU is the main aviation market we have. It's 48%, and just afterwards, it's 36 goes to, in a way, Russia. And I think, again, this is after we've been part of the common aviation space with European Union. When it comes to roads, I fully agree with what was mentioned. The TNT is the most important, and the investment plan of the extensions of TNT to the east, it's one of the main priority. We're very committed to it, and as the ministers of transport agreed in June in Luxembourg to really speed up, I think this is exactly what we should now focus on. And I think it's very important to have at the next summit of Eastern Partnership something very concrete in terms of investment projects on it. And this is the only project which has a target beyond 2020, it's 2030. And I think it's also very important in this reflection exercise that was launched at the level of high conference in May, but I think more practically yesterday it was circulated already, the practical contribution. I think the connectivity and this dimension, like getting inspiration from TNT, it's what exactly we should focus for the future. We already, with the help of EaB and EBRD, implemented 140 kilometers of the TNT network back home, and we have 150 kilometers feasibility studies. But it's a lot of work. We have 17 projects with the amount of 917 millions that should be in a way invested in order to really have the TNT implemented back home. When we talk about connectivity and roads, I think it's important to talk about connectivity of neighbors. And when it comes to Romania, here it's very important. The work on the road project will connect us to Odessa to Munich, like Odessa, Iași, Târgu Mureș, Budapest, Vienna, and Munich. And it's very important the prioritization of this. When it comes to Ukraine, it's very important the coordination of infrastructure projects and to road rehabilitation, especially kind of that are coming from the border. And I think it's also very important to talk, when we talk here about road safety, and I think we do a lot within the Eastern Partnership on this, and already the important progress. Last year it decreased with 10% the number of car accidents, and if to compare in the last 5 years, it decreased with 30%. And I think it's very important also to continue to work on this. If to have some words on Like also railway, we're working hard on with Aberdeen AB to restructure and to have like a transformational reform in the railway sector. It's very important on this. A few words on energy. As you all know, Moldova is a member of energy community. We work hard on the transposition of the legislation, and the latest priority being the waste management and energy efficiency. Now it's the key how to really put it in practice, and also the business sector here, it plays an important role. We're also interested to learn from the experience of member states, because we know everyone is busy with also having these national strategies and plans of energy efficiency. It's very important to know how also to learn from some best experiences on that. A few words on gas. We are the among ones concerned about the uncertainty regarding the future of gas transit through Ukraine. And we had yesterday the visit of Prime Minister to Kiev, and also it was one of the important aspects that we should in a way discuss. Our gas contract with Russian Federation expires at the end of this year. Also when the Nord Stream is expecting to be in a way operational, and I think also it's one important aspect to look into. And naturally, Moldova is very interested in alternative routes, and here we are working hard on the Yashun-Chisinau pipeline. The work started, and we expected the work to finalize by the end of this year and to be operational next year. And at the same time, we're very interested in the Trans-Balkanic pipeline, the reverse flow. And it's very important also to see it operational by the end of 2020. Electricity, it's a lot of work here. In order, the main priority is to get the interconnection with Romania, with the aim at the latest stage to have the interconnection on ENTSO-E. The digital, it's I think one of the most discussed aspect of connectivity here within the Eastern Partnership. We started with the diminishing of the roaming tariffs. We had it as a goal within 20 deliverables by 2020. Our ministers of ICT are committed to sign this regional roaming agreement, but of course our aim is to diminish the roaming tariff between Eastern partners and European Union member states, and I think this is very important also to keep it in mind for the next, in a way, discussion for the future after 2020. We are very welcoming the EU for digital and all these elements that includes digitalization of public services, to develop the capacity for broadband internet, the improved capacity of cybersecurity, all aspects which are very interested and keen. We believe that services should be the core of our next, in a way, element of cooperation, because this is a practical element to improve standards and quality of lives and to kind of reach it from our countries at the level of the EU standards. And I think digital plays a very important practical role on this. We are also strive to have more and more the online services, and I think this is also very important in the discussion of the businesses, but also of civil society to have it here. And I fully believe that if to a few words of the future, that interconnectivity will be the priority, and we should in a way concentrate on it and to keep it for the future after 2020. And of course we should do as much as we can in order to really have everything we agreed on 20 deliverables by 2020 to really have it on place. For us it's important on transport to really promote the further multimodal transport schemes in order to really become easier, quicker and cheaper. And I think road safety, as I mentioned, it's important to kind of continue to work on technical standards, education and stricter rules. Developing the transport corridors infrastructure, the TNT kind of is exactly what we should in a way continue to work on. And I fully agree with what was mentioned before, that all the projects on transport and energy should very much be connected with all the aspects of environment and take in consideration all this in a way dimension. I think it's important. I think it's a link with the next panel. It's, I think, important to, when zooming out from the Eastern Partnerships, also to learn from the experiences of the Western Balkans. And if there are some lessons learned or some good projects that work well in these dimensions in the Western Balkans, I think it could be also useful to be transposed or multiplied in the Eastern Partnership. And I think also this is one of the priority which we can continue the three countries having association agreements and DCFTA to work more. And we believe that as we have this platform for the DCFTA, we can extend something similar to transport, energy and digital. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And before the last guest speaks, Ms. Flavia Palanza from the European Investment Bank, I wanted to just move away from this conversation about the physical connections to the digital and the people. You started your talk there by saying that a huge number of people were now using the visa-free. And in Georgia, what I've learned in the last few years is that we saw in Georgia in the Rose Revolution this idea of a youthful revolution. And to some extent, there was an argument for that. But the problem was that those people are now old. You know, they're like 50 or 40 years old. You know, they're old. They think they're young, but they're old, actually. And what I also now see is a new generation that grew up in this country not even knowing about the Soviet Union. It was like Rose Revolutions and things. It's in the past. They were at school or they weren't there. They're just a new generation of kids who are now like 18 to say 23. And they just grew up thinking they're part of Europe. And they speak English and they watch movies and they're on the internet. They're completely digital. You know, they grew up with a mobile phone in their hands. And I really think that this visa-free has been good for them. I mean, we talk about the cheap air transport, and there are so many kids now, and they're going on holiday, they're going overseas, they're coming back, and you can't teach someone democracy, really. You can't teach them what Europe's like. They've got to go. And I really encourage this. You know, those people from Europe here, you've got to keep these visa-frees open, and you've got to free up the ability of young people in particular to work for a time in Europe. One of the members of the European Business Association staff, Mariam, has just been given a grant to study 4 years for her doctorate in Hungary, and it will revolutionize, you know, her life and her perspective. Education, the ability for our students to move between universities is really important. We're building a huge, we just opened another university in Batumi, we're building a huge complex in Kutaisi. And if we can use communications to ease the route for these young people to move backwards and forwards between the Eastern Partnership countries, but also into Europe, that will be an investment that is of incalculable importance. Because if we can get the skill set up of our 18 to 23-year-old kids, that is actually a wonderful, wonderful investment. So please do think about that. And the digital links are already there in principle because it's the World Wide Web. But what I do notice a little bit is that some of the older institutions are still quite a long way behind. Georgia's pretty good, but we're still a little way behind. And on that communication side, you do have to think about how you're communicating. Even a conference like this, for example, you know, I mean, how big is the Facebook page? You know, how many people will see me? They'll definitely see me, because it'll be on my social media within minutes. But how many will see this conference? You know, really do think about the digital links between us. My final speaker, please, is actually, in many ways, I'm not sure you're the sponsor of this event, but what you do here is the link in many ways. As a businessman, it's all very well having diplomatic discussions, but we can't build it if we don't have the money. And who you give the money to is extremely important. I want you to give as much money as possible to Georgia. And then after you've given us all the money we want, please give it to Moldova and then Ukraine. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and I will leave it to you afterwards to discuss how the money is going to be distributed among yourselves, okay? So, good morning, everyone. Before starting, I would like to apologize that our Vice President Hudak, who was intended to be the speaker of this conference, had to leave yesterday on an urgent business back in Luxembourg and couldn't make it. So, apologies to our Georgian guests and to the other speakers. Just one word about the European Investment Bank and why connectivity is so important for us. The EIB, for those of us who don't know us, is the bank of the European Union. We are a non-profit organization, and our objective is to translate in the financial investment world the policies of the EU, within the EU, and also with its partner countries. We were established together with with what was the budding seeds of the European Union back in 1957. And this brings me to the topic of this panel, which indeed we sponsored together with our Georgian partners. So why did we decide to choose connectivity as a topic? Because connectivity has been a core objective of the member of the European Union since inception. Now you see EU, the EU is anything but a monolithic economy. There are huge differences between the countries, between the core countries, between the new member states, also within the countries, between regions. And connectivity and investment in transport, investment in energy networks, investment in telecommunication, in digital communication nowadays is key, as the Vice Prime Minister was saying. It's key to promote growth within countries by interlinking regions, by permitting rural areas, more remote areas to be opened up and to have access to the rest of the world, and for the rest of the world to go there. And as well, it's fundamental for countries to come closer together. And in our business, we finance both infrastructure, we finance corporate, we finance SMEs. Connectivity represents about a good quarter of our lending. So we are the Bank of the European Union, and we also support European policy outside the EU, and we support very much, and with great interest and personal interest, I think, for all the people involved, the Eastern European Partnership, which we see as the new frontier of the European Union. And I think for us to strengthen the link with the partners of Eastern Europe is one of the more fundamental and close to our heart objectives. So the partnership has rests on 4 pillars, and connectivity is one of these pillars, with also the 3 elements which I mentioned before: transport, energy, and digitalization. And transport has gained a new impulse in recent years with the added objective of including this region to the 10 transport. I'm not going to repeat what the Minister said about the importance of transport to develop the countries within this region, and also to develop economic integration, not only with Europe, but with the countries of the European Partnership. Because let's not forget that economic growth comes through integration, and the markets of the partnership, individual partnership countries, are relatively small markets. And growth also comes through better integration, more trade, better communication, so that value chains can build throughout these countries, and local markets can tap on other markets to optimize comparative advantages and to optimize production and throughout to optimize growth and optimize welfare. The other big connectivity area is energy. And in energy, we can split between the big networks, but also with the energy efficiency. Energy efficiency, which means devising systems to enhance the networks, to enhance production, to fight carbon emissions and to fight climate change. But also it means the greater use of renewable all over Europe and optimizing the networks to make sure to see that renewable produced in the Ukraine can be exported to other countries. And let me give you some examples of what we have done both in transport and energy in the Eastern Partnership countries. In transport, the backbone, I mean, the trans-European network is, of course, our key element, and we have contributed to this in most countries, and of course here in Georgia. But in Georgia, which, as the minister was saying, you know, the highway brings, the network brings us to the Black Sea and to ports, and this is the door to the backbone, to Europe, and to open also the other members of the European partnership to Europe. But these backbones, we didn't finance itself, we also financed access roads, the infrastructure which took to it, and that made it possible to open up the rest of the country as well. And this is part of our investment for the coming years, and it is of high priority to us. In the energy sectors, I would like to mention two projects in the integrating networks. The South Gas Corridor with Azerbaijan that links Azerbaijan via Turkey to Italy and Greece, and now will branch off to Bulgaria, to Romania. And the very important link with Moldova, the transmission line. We built 160 kilometers of transmission lines which are going to link Moldova to Romania and beyond to Europe. And this is the first actual interconnection between the Eastern Partnership countries and Europe in terms of networks. And in energy, I would like to mention a project which is quite close to our heart. We gave financing to upgrade and make energy efficient 150 kindergarten in Yerevan, which is it's part of the Armenia energy efficiency program. But to have done it, to have started with these kindergartens, which are, you know, the future, I think was a very nice symbol. Now, this brings me to the first item, communications, telecommunications, and digital, which is an area where there is still a lot to do, and that also applies to us. We are quite present, and we have developed very high technology investment within the European Union in the area of digitalization, but it's still at budding stage in the Eastern Partnership. Although we already have a number of projects in the pipeline in a number of countries, like the Ukraine, like Belarus. But digitalization is not only networks. Digitalization is also making other networks efficient. For instance, the application of digitalization in the energy sector through the application of smart meters, through the optimization of the transmission networks. They permit saving in the use of energy, and they permit the maximization of renewable energy while maintaining the stability of the network. So, to conclude, I can only say that connectivity is a very high priority for the Eastern Partnership countries, and it's a very high priority for the European Union and for ourselves. And the EIB is very committed to continue investments in this area. In the Eastern Partnership, we have been lending on average 1 billion per annum, and of this, a good share went to these objectives. But it is not something which we can do on our own. Just investment in the transport 10 are estimated to be 30 billion between now and 2030. And to do this, we need to partner with other IFIs, we need to partner with the private sector, and most of all, we need the support of the countries of the partnership, because these investments need to be well prepared. They need to be well integrated in a master plan. They need to be optimized to ensure that the funds go there where the investments are most needed. We can provide support together with the European Union, by making available grants for feasibility studies. We can make available grants to support the implementation. But the development of the legal environment, the development of the regulatory environment is something that only the countries of the partnership can do. Just like in Europe, it's only something that only the European countries can do. We also need to attract private investment, because the public sector and the IFIs themselves cannot do it. And private investment also means a regulatory environment and giving the security to the private sector that they can come, that they will get a return, and that they will have the support and the security of the authorities that investment will prosper, and that they will be able to maintain it and develop it. We have to work on that together, because connectivity means growth, connectivity means integration, and it means prosperity, and through prosperity, stability for us and for our future generations. Thank you.
Where's the organizer? How much time do we have? Where's the organizer? How much time? The organizer? How much time do we have? Hello? Yeah, how much time do I have? 5 minutes. Okay, 5 minutes. Thank you very much for the closing speech, I suppose. Before we go on to questions, just to pick up a couple of the things you said. You mentioned SMEs, and you mentioned education with the kindergartens. There are big banks in every country, and the members of my business association are people like Finca and Crystal. They're the organizations, the banks that actually lend to the SMEs. There's big oil, and a lot of these energy projects are about big oil. But we're building electric cars now in Kutaisi, and that's the future. I mean, organizations like yours now really have to think this through. You know, who's on the board, who's directing where you're going, who are in the business associations. We don't have big oil in our business association, but we do have people making MLED, LED light bulbs, and fiber optics, and of course solar panels. We've got small businesses with water turbines, like a $4 or $5 million investment, and in many ways that brings more benefits than some of these big projects. We do not have big tobacco. You cannot join the European Business Association if you're a tobacco company. I mean, it's just that simple, because we believe in the future. So I love the fact that you are thinking about SMEs. And I know it's very, very hard for a big transnational organization like EIB to get into that space. Sitting on the front row there is JITA, the Georgian Startup Center. I would encourage all of you to really think through, you know, how this has worked over the last 20 years, because that is not important for the next 20 years. It is going to be driven by the SMEs. We've got more people exporting in our business association than anybody else, right? And why? Because we work in the regions and we work with the SMEs. So I would encourage you to do that. Question over there, sir. Yes, please. Mike.
Yeah, thank you, David.
Please address the question to who you want to answer it, because we won't have time for all four.
Sure, my question goes to Madam Vice Prime Minister of Georgia, Tskitishvili, and I will be very brief. It is about Anaklia Deep Sea Port project, which undoubtedly has it is fundamentally important for this country as well as for Europe, so to speak. My question is about whether you can say with high degree of confidence that you will be able to find a compromise on last remaining issue to be agreed with international donors, and that is commercial risk insurance. Thank you.
Can I, Vice Prime Minister, could I ask you to limit your answer to about 1 minute? Because I want to take another question. So if anyone's got another question, put your hand up now. So please, Vice Prime. Are you going to answer?
Okay. Yeah. First of all, thank you for a question highlighting this project, which is really very important. For Anaklia Deep Sea Water Port, as I already mentioned, it's also part of the extended Trans-European network. And for us, it's really important to have the opportunity to connect our railroad infrastructure to the port and thus to connecting it to Europe. And of course, provide additional opportunity for European and Asian businessmen to connect to each other through Georgia. For Anaklia Port, as you know, we are doing all that we can to support a private consortium and still private business which is doing this project with very strong assistance, both financial and political, and also from the negotiation, participation in the negotiation with IFIs to raise the funds. So we are doing our best to provide the best environment and best background and best support to the private investor to implement the sport, which is very crucial for us. And for that perspective, I really do very much hope that IFIs and private investor will find the ways how to address pure commercial risks solution, how to just to cover these risks. From other side, the government already accepted all other major conditions that the IFIs and consortiums as well were providing as prerequisites for implementing this project. What I, just using the microphone, this privilege of being the host, I would catch also the very important remarks that actually that David made about the younger generation and the generation of new kids which raised in Georgia, understanding that they are part of Europe. So I think this is the most important that we can still take from this panel even, because when we're talking about the connectivity, it's really how physically we can support this young generation and support businesses to become part of Europe. But what the conference is about, yesterday is a whole day yesterday, and I believe that today we'll also, during this 2 days stay in Batumi, we had the discussion how Georgia and how countries of Eastern Partnership can come closer to the Europe, either in physical way or through the sectorial cooperation, through education, cultural relations, any mobility, also opening the market, jobs market also for Georgians in Europe, promoting this people-to-people contacts. And from that perspective, I think this is very inspiring discussions that we had yesterday, that I hope that we'll have today. And from our perspective, from the perspective of all those who were talking today, I believe I would like to remind to all of us the words of both President of Georgia, who was encouraging all of us think out of box and think how we can think about new ways how we can connect Europe and Eastern Partnership countries, and Georgia specifically, to Europe and vice versa. And of course, I also would like to recall the works of President Tusk, which was also inspiring all of us to make the courage and braveness to put this very new important steps.
Okay, I've not got time for another question. Those will be the last words. Do not, under any circumstances, wait until next year until you all come back to Georgia. Tell your friends, send your kids, come back on holiday, later in the summer, go skiing in the winter. We'll be looking forward to greeting you again next summer at the conference, but please come back. This is, quite simply, the best investment opportunity in the world today. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you, panel.